Healing Village at Coimbatore. Welcome back, Malaji. We are very, very delighted and looking forward to listening to you today. I humbly invite you and hand over the session to you now. Thank you.
Namaskaram. Dhanyavad, Shri Hari. Just a slight change. Today's theme is not just Ārogyam, because Ārogyam would become slightly limited. It's well-being in Indic knowledge thought, right? Indic knowledge tradition. And also, I was for 15 plus years with SPJ School of Global Management and Leadership. Rashtram pulled me back from my global travels to Sonipat, and I'm happy to be rooted at Sonipat now, being with all my learners and connecting with all of you through Rashtram initiatives. So it's my pleasure to be introduced by Shri Hari, one of our learners. And I did attend some of the sessions that all of you are going through. I've been participating in many FDPs at CPDHE, at Rashtram. And I truly believe that the future is in the hands of all of you. It's the teachers who are going to take the parampara ahead, right? I mean, why do we even call it IKS or Bhartiya Gyan Parampara, right? We call it a parampara, which means it came to us through the earlier generations, and it's your generation which is going to take it forward as a torch, and by lighting the lamps of lives in your learners. So if I do a session, naturally my session reaches my limited learners. However, when I do a session for FDP, it's going to reach many more learners across the globe, right? And also it's going to create that continuity. So it's a huge responsibility, and my gratitude to all our gurus who have guided us to be here together. Shri Hari, the PowerPoint, please. Yeah, next, please. So, I mean, since I'm dealing with, in this session with teachers, right, I said, oh, the first slide has to be of what we are going to explore, what is going to be unfolding. Unfortunately, I'm using the very popular way of PowerPoint, because this is how generally now we have been tuned to learn, right? Ideally, I would have preferred to have, no PowerPoint, all of us sitting next to each other and sharing this knowledge in a personal space. However, let's make the most of what the universe has provided us for. So we look at understanding well-being from Indic perspective. And I'm sure many of you would be wondering why a different perspective, how Indian perspective is different. But we will talk about it. And somewhere Raghav, yesterday's session, I'm very happy that he touched upon, though very briefly, to Raj Dharma and the pandemic. So the ground is already set for us to now take off on our flight. Also, well-being is not just about physical or mental health. It's also about understanding, finding, discovering, rediscovering our own signature strength and using those strengths at our workplace, which creates engagement. World over, we are seeing, if you look at any of the engagement survey, whether in the field of academia or whether in the corporate world, consulting firms do not have very positive numbers to share with us. So why is the engagement going down? And we'll try to connect and see the connection with our well-being and the engagement. We'll also look at how well-being from the Indic perspective is an interconnectedness between the macrocosm, which is the universe, and microcosm, which is us. We have always been saying in our Indic wisdom, and you would have heard this many times, Pindete Brahmande, right? We are the pind. So we are the mini Brahmand. Brahmand is the entire universe or cosmos. How is our well-being tied up with this understanding? And of course, everywhere we see the happiness coming, happiness surveys, happiness courses being taught. And I say it lightly, but I truly mean, and Shri Hari and your entire journey in this FDP would prove that at Rashtram, we don't just believe in teaching a happiness course. We live Anandam. We live well-being and happiness, not just happiness as the word is described by the West, but happiness in the true Indic sense, which is Anandam. Next, Shri Hari. And this is one of my favorite quotes by Sri Raman Maharshi, that without understanding yourself, what is the use of trying to understand the world? And we as faculty, obviously, depending on the subject that we are teaching about the world. Very few of us are fortunate enough to be teaching knowledge or understanding, which is about understanding self. And I feel it's a privilege to be teaching this. And it also becomes our responsibility to spread this with other faculty. So whichever theme, whichever subject you are teaching, you are able to integrate understanding self as a part of understanding anything in the world. Next, Shri Hari. And I will not ask you the definition of well-being, right? It's very theoretical understanding. So I'll open it to all of you now, that how do you experience well-being? What happens when you are experiencing well-being? Shri Hari, you can open up the view of the learners, all the participants.
The chat box has been opened, Malaji.
Okay.
So we can take responses in the chat
Sure,
box.
we can take response. I am at my optimal performance. Yes, Sheetal, perfect. Joy of heart. And I'm so thankful you didn't say brain, right? Joy is from the heart and not the brain. Harmony, yes. Wonderful. Some more? Enthusiasm and right action. Perfect. Excellent answers. Peace, stability, happiness, inner peace, right? So outer environment, and today when I'm in Mumbai, there has been cyclonic storm since yesterday, but the inner peace should not get affected by that, right? So wonderful. Connectedness with the entire universe, spiritual practices, of course. See how your answers are going deeper at one level, and also your answers are expanding the consciousness from just physical or psychological well-being. Wonderful. So we are ready, right? We are ready to plunge devotion to the supreme and desire for salvation. Absolutely. And Savitri Sharvindo, wonderful. Dhanyavadaha. I'm so happy because once we understand what is well-being, and if we have experienced well-being, Sherry, we can go back to the PowerPoint now. So please tell me, how often do we experience well-being in our everyday life? Whatever you put in the chat box, how often during a day or 24 hours do we experience? Or 7 days in a week, or 30 or 31 days, 28 days in a month, 365 days in a year? How often we are in this zone of well-being? When we become aware, yes, of course, thank you. So awareness is important. For about an hour a day, Sheetal, you are extremely lucky if you are, experiencing it at least for an hour a day, right? Usually many of us do not even experience it beyond few seconds, right? and then the moment we experience it, we feel great about ourselves, everyone around us, and the life in totality. However, the moment we are out of the zone of well-being, we get into a lot of disharmony. So obviously, when we have experienced well-being as a certain state of being, the moment we are not in that state or zone, we experience just the reverse, right? So now let's explore what is well-being from Indic perspective. As I shared earlier, there are two paths to understand. When you look at the West, and that's where you would realize if you look at the history of wellness and well-being, again, they have analyzed and dissected everything. That means there is a physical being, which is wellness. There is a psychological thing, which is well-being. So they still distinguish between body and mind, as if both are very different and they can exist apart from each other. The definitions of what is well-being is still evolving. So when you look at anyone who's been teaching psychology here or has done study or read some literature on well-being, they would realize that there is subjective well-being, there is personal well-being, there is social well-being, there is ecological well-being. So they are still evolving and working around with words and expanding the understanding of what is well-being. However, when we look at the East, and when I say East, I would talk of Bharatvarsha, which is more of a idea, which is more of a culture rather than a geographical boundary. And our Bharatvarsha, the Bharatiya culture, had expanded to many more geographical territories than what is limited now on the map. So from Vedic times till now, well-being has been a continuous thread in our literature. And also well-being is not just a state or a zone or physical or psychological or social. It's a philosophy of life. And the moment we understand, we realize that, oh, all those definitions and paradigm shifts that West is going through, our rishis, our sages, who really were scientists, and science is called Shastra in our land. So they had that scientific vision, scientific understanding, scientific intuition. The only difference is they used metaphor. So when somebody refers to Sri Aurobindo and Savitri, it's a metaphor, right? It's difficult to understand unless you are used to that language. And also a lot of our Vedic literature is written as philosophy or written as poetry. Therefore, we are unable to see it as science. The moment we understand that it's pure science, pure mathematics of life and cosmos, we are able to apply it in our everyday life. Next, Sri Hari. So 2 ways in Indic thought. Now we have distinguished between West and East. And now let's go deeper into the Indic thought. There are 2 ways of understanding well-being. One is, of course, we understand what is health. And health is known as swasthya. In Hindi, and Sanskrit, it comes from Sanskrit. Anyone who's swastha or experiencing swastha is experiencing well-being. Also, because this understanding and this session is based on literature from Ayurveda, the oldest texts of Charak Samhita, Vagbhat and Sushrut. Ayurveda, Veda of life, right? And you have had a session with Ram Manoharji who has explained it beautifully to all of you. Ayurveda begins with the explanation of what is life. And not only explanation of what is life, but what are the various kinds of life which are possible. And I was very happy yesterday when Raghav was referring to pandemic, which is one way of life that we all are experiencing. So Sri Hari, next slide. So now we look at what are the different types of life described in Ayurveda. Ayurveda begins with that. It says, hita ahitam, sukham dukham, ayustasya hita ahitam, manam cha taccha yatroktam, ayurveda sa uchyate. So what is Ayurveda? Ayurveda is one science which tells you what creates hita or ahita. Now, all of us would have heard these terms, right? Hita, we say at a superficial level, beneficial or useful or effective, anything that makes us effective. Or it's more of a holistic understanding of what is good for us. Ahita is just the reverse. I mean, when we eat, we think of hita, what is good for us, what is not good for us. The same way, what is not good for us becomes ahita. And sukha and dukkha, we all experience sukha and dukkha, and it's like a pendulum, or it's like a balance, right? Both the balance go up and down. Sukha is there, sometimes dukkha is there. And the same way about hita and ahita. So what creates sukha, what creates dukkha, what creates hita, what creates ahita? The Shastra or the science that describes this is called Ayurveda. Next. And imagine such a holistic definition of what is life. At least I have not read in any science. You know, most of the life sciences that we study, the way life is described from the Western perspective, we do not get this very holistic understanding of knowing what life is. So there are various shades in this definition. One, if you pay attention, you realize that Hita precedes Sukha. It does not say Sukha and then Hita. It's very clear. The rishis were very clear. This is from Charak Samhita. And Acharya Charak is Agnivesh, who has written this, is very clear, his student, that Hita precedes Sukha. Now, when at one level, and Raghav yesterday, I'm so happy to be reconnecting with this session, which just happened yesterday. So your learning is alive. And you also realize that the entire FDP, which is based on IKS, is like a parampara, like a continuity. Your first session to last session would have some dots which are getting connected. These are not different subjects or themes that you are learning, right? So the Raghav also referred to SDGs, and he very clearly, categorically mentioned that they are not being met. We all realize that the corporates, the countries are struggling to implement sustainability development goals. And now we realize that if the Indic thought of Hita, what causes Hita, was integrated into our curriculum at school level, college level, corporate level, business level, ethical level, national policy level, right? We are into public policy. So at the policy level, then the SDG would not be even needed, because everyone would realize what is Hita and what is Ahita. And if that becomes the Rajdharma, if that gets integrated, it would create well-being at every level, from individual level to collective level to universal level. And let me just expand slightly. I've not put it up in the slide, but let me expand slightly from the sutra or from the interpretation, the tika of the sutra in Charak Samhita. A life of that man is said to be good, or hita ayu, who is a well-wisher of all creatures. So you realize, and I'm sure Ram Manohar ji also mentioned this, loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. When we say loka, it's not just people, right? Loka is people, but not just loka. Loka is also the spaces. And the moment we say spaces, our planet is only one loka. There are so many spaces where life exists. Science is still struggling to find out where else life exists, because we see us, human being, as the center of the universe. And therefore we forget that we are just a part of the entire universe. So the creature of all creatures, someone who wishes good for all the creatures, she or he does not long for other people's goods. I mean, when you look at today's advertisements, and this is where we realize how our ethics and values have changed and what our Indic thought process was. What creates well-being? Being santoshi, or content with what you have. What does the advertisement, today's marketing and advertisements teach us? Oh, if somebody has a better car, if somebody is using a different, better brand, if somebody is staying in a bigger house, luxurious destination wedding, that is good. That will create happiness for me. And that creates jealousy. You know, there is one, I don't know if you have read about those teaching management would have known. There is a psychologist called Dr. Lyle Spencer. He has done a lot of work into competency mapping in USA. He has also been to India, and he has done some consulting in India. He has been connected with Bodhi Tattva here, done some research on that. And he states very clearly that achievement motivation, which is so well, popularized by the American and European way of life, achievement motivation has its own seed of destruction. So if implemented without dharma, then it creates destruction at individual and collective level. And our pandemic, as we listen to this, we realize that our pandemic is a result of ahita ayu, greed, jealousy, right? Ecological disasters. As I read the Tika ahead, he is a teller of truth. He is peace-loving, acts with deliberation, not negligent. He or she is devoted to dharma, artha, kama integration, does not get into a profession which is harmful to ecology, and is scholarly, scientific, and humble in character. So sheel or character, also the seva of the elderly, which would create hita ayu. Now imagine if we understand this from childhood. And in Ayurveda, there is an entire chapter in Charak Samhita in Vimanasthana called Janapado Dhvamsa, which is about pandemic, which says that pandemic is a compromise on well-being. It is a result of ahita ayu for long time. And that ahita ayu creates dukha ayu, which creates extinction at mass level. And therefore, we realize that our Indic thought of well-being is so relevant today for all of us to understand and then integrate in our life. Now, hita precedes sukha. So what is sukha? I mean, generally we would translate sukha as happiness, but this is the beauty of Sanskrit language, that a word has not one equivalent word, but maybe we need a paragraph, as I did for hita, to explain what that word means in Sanskrit. So sukha, su and kha. Su means auspicious. Auspicious, again, is a very limiting word, but su is shubh. Su is something which creates well-being and wellness. And kha is the space. Kha is used for akash. Kha is also used for the space we live. And in Ayurveda, kha is, for us, is used at various levels. The first space where we live is our body, because it's in our body that we reside, and therefore the body has to be healthy. The body has to be su. The body can be su or creating wellness and well-being only if it is healthy. It can remain healthy only if it is balanced. And little later, I'll connect you with the definition of health in Ayurveda. And you would realize that, oh my God, it gives so much of self-responsibility to create well-being. It's not there in any pill which allopathy gives us, that, okay, it's not your responsibility to become healthy. Take this tablet and it's the doctor's responsibility for our well-being. So first kha in which we live, which needs to be su, is the body. The second is our manas, the mind. So if our mind is not healthy, then obviously we will not be sukhi. So well-being is connected extremely with our physical health, but also our psychological health. And both of them are connected with the home. Anyone, those who have experienced either Vastu or Feng Shui, would know that we need to remove the clutter. We need to keep our space clean and organized. And that creates flow of energy or prana. So in our body, the prana should be able to flow beautifully without obstruction. That can happen if we don't have blockages. We all know that any heart-related problems come because of blockages. So in our body at various levels, if there are blockages, then those blockages create a avarodha or the obstruction of the prana. And if the prana is not able to move, then sukha is not experienced. The same thing is at the mind level. If our mind has knots or granthis, as they are called in Ayurveda, we need to dissolve these granthis. If we don't dissolve these granthis, prana at mind level, manas level, will also not be able to flow. And the pranamay kosha, manomay kosha, and annamay kosha are all related to the 7 chakras, the major 7 chakras. There are many more minor chakras. These chakras in our body are actually the access points of the energy, the cosmic prana, the Mahaprana, which when it flows through us, then it creates well-being and wellness at all levels. The Kha is without clutter. The Kha is without Granthi. Now, do you realize the wellness, well-being definitions that you see in the Western literature and the depth with which, the height with which it is connected in our Indic thought is extremely different. Also, it requires a lot of self-responsibility to create this clutterless place. Without removing the clutter, and only we can remove the clutter within us, right? And that's where I was writing a book on Reiki, because I'm a Reiki healer. And I realized that Reiki is the cosmic energy, and the cosmic energy flows through our chakras. We are the Akarshan centers. What is Krishna? Krishna is nothing else but the Akarshan Shakti. Just 1 second, and give me 1 second. Yeah, I'm sorry, there was too much noise. I had to close the window and manage. Krishna is the Akarshan Shakti, which is within our chakras. And all of you know that Krishna played flute. How can you play the flute? If there are holes, right? And these holes represent our chakras. And the holes have to be without any block. We all know that the music will not flow from a flute if there are blockages. And therefore, we realize that to have that Mahaprana within our body, to create sukha, create that flow of prana without any blockages, to create well-being and wellness, we need to keep on decluttering ourselves. So body level, mind level, house level, social level, ecological level, society level, Rashtra level, and the world or the Prithvi level, Bhu level, Bhuma level. All the levels, we have to remove these blockages as an individual. And the best part of our Indic thought is, the moment I make that small change in me, that change becomes contagious. That change creates higher vibration and energy. And that energy and vibration spreads to the outer world. Next, Shri Hari. So before we go here, any questions I would like to open up before we go to the definition of swastha in Ayurveda? Any questions on Hita and Sukha Ayu? And just the reverse is Dukha, right? If there are blockages, it creates Dukha. It's very clear. Blockage at any level creates Dukha. Non-sustainable life at any level creates Ahita. And in our pandemic, we are experiencing Ahita and Dukha reaching its Charam Seema, from where the only U-turn possible is to take responsibility and start creating Hita and Sukha in our own life. Any question, any comment?
The chat box is open now.
Yeah.
Requesting the faculty members to share on the chat box or even use the raise hand option.
Yeah, Sumanji has raised hand, Hari. Shri Hari.
नमस्ते मैम.
नमस्ते.
मैम, ये जो ग्रंथि का ऑप्शन है, ये ग्रंथि कहाँ या कोई स्पेशल जगह पे होती है ऑब्स्टिकल, या बॉडी में कहीं भी हो सकती है?
ग्रंथि बॉडी में कहीं भी हो सकती है. ग्रंथि कैन बी अ क्लॉट, ठीक है. ग्रंथि कैन बी अ ब्लॉक. ग्रंथि इज एनीथिंग व्हिच ऑब्स्ट्रक्ट्स द फ्लो ऑफ प्राणा. वो शरीर में कहीं भी हो सकती है और कुछ पॉइंट्स पर ज्यादा होती है. जैसे कि अपनी ग्लैंड्स है. बहुत सारे लोगों को थायराइड प्रॉब्लम होते हैं आजकल. थायराइड के क्यों होने लगे हैं प्रॉब्लम? या तो हम छोटे बच्चों की बात देखें, राइट? स्मॉल चिल्ड्रन, दे स्टार्ट गेटिंग टॉन्सिल्स प्रॉब्लम्स, राइट? बिकॉज दिस इज आवर सेंटर फॉर एक्सप्रेशन. Ma Saraswati resides us here, right? So the words come, expression, power of expression comes from our Vishuddhi chakra, and Vishuddhi chakra is connected with thyroid gland and tonsils. Now, the moment we want to express something, but we don't express, or we are not allowed. Let's say there are people around us of whom we have fear, and therefore we don't express. Now, words are energy. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. Science has proved that. Now, if words are created but not expressed, what happens to them? They stay within?
Inside.
Inside. Inside रहते जैसे हम floppy में memory होती है, disk. The moment you have more files, it says enough, no memory space now. So you have to delete few files, right?
Yes, yes.
तो वही होता है, ग्रंथि हो जाती है because we have overused the space. भैया इतने सारे शब्द हमने thyroid gland में जमा कर दिए without expression, and therefore yoga and Ayurveda come together. So lot of breathing exercises, lot of pranayama, refining exercises that if we do, we can dissolve the granthi at every gland, every chakra.
जितने बैरियर है, ऑब्स्टिकल है, वो इससे रिमूव हो जाते हैं.
रिमूव हो जाती है.
या और जो ये हम लोग चैंटिंग करते हैं मंत्रों की, इन मंत्रों की चैंटिंग से भी यही असर होता होगा.
100% मंत्र चैंटिंग, इसीलिए तो हमारे यहाँ थेरेपी है. मंत्र को हमने सिर्फ स्पिरिचुअल प्रैक्टिस से नहीं जोड़ा है, आयुर्वेद में तो उसे थेरेपी के साथ भी जोड़ा है.
यस यस.
एंड पेंडेमिक का एक मेरा केस स्टडी है, CBPACS, चौधरी ब्रह्म प्रकाश चरक आयुर्वेदिक संस्थान, दिल्ली के पास आयुर्वेद का हॉस्पिटल है. उन्होंने कोई एलोपैथिक दवाई न देकर सिर्फ आयुर्वेद की दवाई और उसके साथ मंत्र चैंटिंग एंड प्राणायाम, भ्रामरी प्राणायाम स्पेशली, उससे पेंडेमिक के लोगों को ठीक करके वापस घर भेजा है.
यस यस. मैम वो शब्दों की भी एनर्जी होती है, जो चैंटिंग होती है, आई थिंक वो शब्दों में भी एनर्जी होती है और वो एनर्जी इंप्रूव करती होगी ऑब्स्टिकल को.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल जी.
थैंक यू मैम.
धन्यवाद धन्यवाद.
Thank you.
Okay, Srihari, if there are no more questions, we'll move ahead because I would like to spend a little time on the definition of swastha and then get into a next round of Q&A. Dhanyavada. So now if you look at the definition of swastha, WHO took again so many paradigm shift to come from physical health to integrate mental health, and then social health and spiritual health. But if we look at this definition, which was written like millennia ago, it says samadosha, sama agnishcha, samadhatu malakriya, prasanna atma indriya manaha, swasthya ityabhidhiyate. ये सुश्रुत ने दी है व्याख्या. अब एक एक शब्द देखें तो आप अपना नोट्स बना सकते हैं, क्योंकि इसमें मैंने पीपीटी में एक्सपांड नहीं किया है. हम डायलॉग करके इसको एक्सपांड करेंगे. Sama, let's understand what is sama. Sama has various shades of meaning again. Sama can mean equal, but sama can mean balance also. So unfortunately, the problem with, and this is when you start discussing from tomorrow till Saturday we meet again. When we discuss the challenges of implementing or for you to apply Indic thought in your practical work, this is one of the biggest challenge that I have realized, that many people do not know Sanskrit. And therefore, we do not know the exact shade of meaning of sama in this sutra. And therefore, many people, what they do, they read only the commentary. They don't take a Sanskrit dictionary and go into the various shades and then apply. So if you only read the commentary or tika written by that particular person, that scholar, however great the scholar could be, we are limiting our understanding to the understanding of that particular scholar. Also, many a times you would realize that various different shades are described by different scholars, which creates a confusion within us. Is this meaning right or is this meaning right? Like, I don't want to take name of the person because that person is teaching Ayurveda, is writing books on Ayurveda. Quite a popular name in the field of Ayurveda. Unfortunately, he has describe Sama as equal. And therefore, the entire understanding of this sutra changes. But if you really go into the depth and read more original Sanskrit text with the commentaries, you would realize that Sama means balance. So the key to swastha or well-being or wellness is balance, keeping balance. Balance on what? And this is what our rishis have described. Balance of dosha, agni, dhatu, malakriya. This is the bodily processes, not parts, but processes. And our mana and indriya, atma. So at one level is Annamay Kosh, where dosha, agni, dhatu and malakriya happen. Another is the Pranamaya and Manomay Kosh, going all the way to Anandamay Kosh and Vigyanmay Kosh, because it's talking of prasannata at Indriya, Mana and Atma level. Atma, Indriya and Mana level. So it's not just well-being is not just limited to physical well-being or mental, as I shared earlier. Now let's understand what is dosha. Because I realize, and I do a lot of faculty development work, we at Rashtram last year had conducted over 6 weekends, 24 plus hours of FDP, based only on emotional intelligence, and this one sutra taking us deeper into what is the teaching style based on this, what is the learning style, how do I understand me, how do I understand my colleagues, how do I understand all my learners who could be of a different prakruti. So I'll come back to dosha. Dosha we generally understand as negative, right? Dosha means anything which is not good. Ye uska dosh hai hum kehte hain. But in Ayurveda, dosha has a different meaning. In Ayurveda, dosha is anything which can go out of balance. And what are they made up of? We all are made up of 3 dosha. Vata, Pitta and Kapha. And these 3 doshas come from Pancha Mahabhut. Yoga calls them Mahatattva. And Ayurveda calls them Mahabhuta. What are they? All of you know, we'll just recap. Akash, Vayu, Agni, Jal, Prithvi. And these Panch Mahabhut, the entire cosmos, not just us, according to Sankhya, from where Ayurveda draws its basic foundation, the entire cosmos is made up of 5 elements, which we call elements in English, Panch Mahabhuta and Triguna, which is Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, which is the energy. And each Mahabhut has a different combination of Triguna, of Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. So it creates a matrix. And this is the matrix of which the entire cosmos is made. And since we are a mini cosmos, we are aligned, we are interconnected with the entire cosmos. So everything in the cosmos affects us, and everything that we do, we experience, we create will affect the cosmos. So it just doesn't make you a victim of something outside us, right? Since we are also mini universes, mini cosmos, macrocosm to microcosm, we are also very powerful being. It's just that we have forgotten that power. So I truly feel that it's not just only about well-being in Indic thought, it's also about getting empowered, getting our power back, that I can influence my well-being, but I can also influence the well-being of the entire cosmos by my tapas, by my being on the right path. So Sama dosha, 3 dosha, Vata, Pitta and Kapha, they have to be balanced. Balance doesn't mean that we are made up of 33% of Vata, Pitta and Kapha. Please, if you read that, just negate it. It just means that when we are born, the combination of how much Vata, how much Pitta, how much Kapha we have is determined. All we need to do is, and that's why we say in our Shastras, we are born in a Prakruti and we die in a Prakruti. Pran or Prakruti saath jate hain. So what is our responsibility between being born and dying? Create that balance and retain that balance. How do you retain? Very simple, through lifestyle. Ayurveda's first part is all about lifestyle. There are two aims of Ayurveda basically. Swasthasya swasthya rakshanam. That means helping the healthy people retain their health. And aturasya vikara shamanam cha. That means if at all you deviate from health, then getting that balance back to swasthya. Atur means unhealthy person, somebody with a disease. How do you remove that disease and bring that person back to health is Ayurveda's main secondary aim. So the first aim is about creating swastha. How do you create swasthya or remain swastha? By understanding our relationship with the cosmos, understanding the circadian rhythm, right? And that's where the Nobel Prize is being given. And unfortunately, it's not a Bhartiya Vaidya who got this Nobel Prize. And this circadian rhythm is called Dinacharya, Ratricharya, and Rutucharya. You can write down these three words too, which create the summer part in your dosha, Agni, and Dhatu Malakriya. Dinacharya, sunrise to sunset. How do you live? What do you do? What do you not do? Which is the right time to do what? Ratricharya, beyond sunset to sunrise the next day. What do you do? What do you not do? How does our body work during that time? This is about Dinacharya and Ratricharya. Rutucharya is about season change. And unfortunately, in today's climate change timings, when in December it's like raining and cyclone in many parts of India, how do you maintain a Rutucharya? This is one of the most challenging part today. But Ayurveda, honestly, for a normal life, has given out very nice regiment of seasons. How do you change your lifestyle? How do you change your food? What you eat, what you not eat? How much exercise you do? When do you do exercise? How do you transit from one season to another? And therefore, if you see, we have 4 Navratris. 2 are popular and everyone knows, the Chaitra Navratri and the Ashwin Navratri. But there are 2 more Navratris which are not very popular, which are called Tantric Navratris, but these are seasonal change. These are connected with season changes. And these Navratris, during them, not only we do our prayers, but we also fast, right? We fast, we do detox of our body and mind, and we connect with our spiritual side during these Navratris, which actually creates health, which creates this balance in dosha. So Tridosha, Vata, Pitta, Kapha have to be, which make up our Prakriti, have to be balanced, not equal. Sama, Agni. We all know that Agni or fire is the one which creates transformation. What all kind of transformation we need? All that we inject through our senses. One is, of course, the food. The food that we eat needs to be transformed into the metabolic way to transform it into nutrition and nourishment. Again, here a huge difference between the West and East. The West describes you calories, carbs, proteins, right? I mean, diabetes is so hyped. Don't eat sugar, don't eat sweets. Ayurveda doesn't look at these, dissected parts of the food. They look at the nourishment that your body is able to digest after the metabolic process is over. And therefore, Agni is important. Agni starts from the mouth itself, the saliva, then the Jaఠragni, then each Panchmahabhut has its own Agni. Our body, entire body is made up of 7 dhatus. Those dhatus have their own Agni. So these Agnis have to be working well. Now we all know that when we cook, the fire has to be at the right degree and temperature, right? And we manage that volume, right? When we are cooking something, now it needs to be fast, now we need to slow down. How do you do that for the Agni within our body? And there are methods in Ayurveda to do it, because most of us are not even aware. Whatever we eat, the combination of food we eat can actually suppress the Agni or... Okay, Ajay ji, thank you. Chaturmas fasting. Let's see when we do Q&A, if I can come back to that. Thank you. But if you, going back to Agni, just connecting it, maybe Chaturmas word came at the right time in our session. Chaturmas are the 4 months of monsoon when our Agni is mild. It's called Manda Agni. And to manage that Agni, to rekindle that Agni, actually nature gives us a lot of stuff. So ginger, we all know that ginger is plentifully available during the monsoons, right? So having a lot of ginger, not a lot of, but whatever is suiting to your Prakriti, having ginger in your food, fasting, having light food, easily digestible food is good in monsoons. Therefore, the Chaturmas Vidhi Vidhan has been given in our Shastras. It's connected with Agni and Malakriya. So the metabolism takes not only of Agni, but also Malakriya. Now you can just Google out later on what is a poop therapy. You know, the American culture, I really fail to understand. They have come up with such, I would call it a very morbid kind of therapies to remain healthy. So again, here we don't take self-responsibility to manage our Malakriya, which is our excretion. But again, you take tablets to manage that. And that tablet is again made up of, you please research and read it for your own self. So equal, not equal, but balanced, dosha, Agni, Agni of all, also Agni at mind level, right? We ingest, in today's time, we are ingesting so much of information. That information needs to be transformed into knowledge and wisdom. And as faculty, we all realize that we are not only just, we are bombarded, we are bombarding our learners also with so much of information that they don't have time to process. We are not equipping them with a lot of learning possibilities, by which they can process that information, transform it into knowledge and wisdom. And our examination, our evaluation processes are also information and knowledge based, not wisdom and application based. So that Agni is also getting Manda Agni because we are not enlightening that Agni. So Dhatu, I will not get too much into Dhatu, that can become an entire session by itself. But we are made up of 7 Dhatus from Rasa, Rakta, Mausa, Meda, Asthi, Majja, Shukra. And ultimately, when all the Dhatus process whatever the injection from food to other sensory inputs at mind level, the last product is Ojas. Ojas creates immunity. And therefore, immunity creates our happiness. Prasanna Atma Indriya Mana. That prasannata, and we all know that happiness is very, again, a limiting word to describe what is prasannata. This is the beauty of Sanskrit language. This is the beauty of our Indic knowledge. Prasannata is not happiness. Prasannata is not even sukha. Prasannata is much more, because when we are prasanna, our our each cell is in a healthy state. It's in an optimal state of health and well-being. And that or prasannata we require of Atma, which is our Atma. Not, Atma, we calling it a soul or a spirit, again is limiting it. Atma is our Jivatma. We as a human being, why am I here as a mala and you as your name, who's here as a participant? Our Atma needs to be prasanna. Our Manas needs to be prasanna. And what connects Atma and Manas is the Indriya. Indriya is all the 5 senses. The Karmendriya, Gyanendriya, 5 Karmendriya, 5 Gyanendriya, and therefore Manas in Ayurveda is called 11th Indriya. it is called Ubhayatmak, because Manas does karma also, Manas does Jnana also. Right now also, very interestingly, all of you are listening to this, but sometimes you must be feeling that, oh, I heard it till here, or when I was watching it, this slide was there on the screen. Now something else is there. Now some other discussion is going. What happened between that time? Physically, you were there. Your ears were here. You were listening. Your brain was here. But was it registering? No. Why? Because your manas had gone out. Manas is a very sukshma indriya. It has a possibility of going out and coming back. It has great speed. It's very agile. And therefore, our well-being is as much dependent on the health of manas as it is on the health of body. And swasthya ityabhidhiyate. Only this person who has all these is called swastha, swastha, steady, rooted or grounded in self. Next. So here we realize that swa, and to be steady, to be rooted, to be grounded, I need to understand swa. And therefore, I would say that it's a privilege to be associated with such a FDP where we are constantly not just looking at how do I teach my subject better, but it also talks of how do I understand myself better. Because ultimately in today's time, self-knowledge is called a meta skill. What is a meta skill? All of you would know. It's a skill which helps us apply or learn better all other skills. So how do I teach? How do I manage? How do I lead? All these skills can be applied better or learn better if I have self-knowledge. We all know that there are people, and we would have experienced it in our own life as well, that we have a lot of technical knowledge or we have a lot of subject knowledge. However, we do not know our own self. Why do I get irritated in the class? How do I teach? How do I respond in a particular way to a particular question or a behavior in my classroom? Am I aware of it? Do I have knowledge of it? Many a times, no. Why do my certain students behave in a certain way? Why do my certain learners behave in a different way? And how is our relationship based on these relationships? In the West, one of the beautiful framework that we have received is iceberg model. In iceberg, it's just the tip of the iceberg which is visible, right? The bottom part is not visible. And in psychology, they say that it's only our behavior which is visible. If you are in an organization, you are in an academic institution, what is visible is the outer behavior of everyone. What is below iceberg is not visible. And ask yourself this question, and we all would have seen the film Titanic, right? What sank the ship as large and as steady as Titanic? Below iceberg. Therefore, understanding below iceberg is extremely critical. One, it's not visible. Two, to acquire the knowledge of below iceberg, we need to dive deep, because Sigmund Freud only said behavior conscious is above iceberg. What is below iceberg is subconscious and unconscious. We don't even know. Unless you dive deep, you will not know. I mean, we all know that if you want pearls, you have to dive deep into the sea, right? The pearls are not floating on the sea. It will not be available on the superficial surface. The same thing, if I want to understand myself, I have to dive much deeper. And the mother of Sri Aurobindo Ashram, the mother very clearly says, the deeper you go, the higher you go. Or the higher you go, the deeper you go. So it's like the cosmic world, it has this beauty. And that's where I talk of macrocosm and microcosm. We have talked about it earlier, that pinde te brahmande. The moment I understand the Brahmand, I understand pind. And the same way, the moment I understand pind, I understand Brahmand. The problem with the Western, their scientific way of knowledge is, they went very myopic and then they went very big with the telescope, but they hardly were able to connect the end here and the planet there. which our rishis were able to connect. Also, the moment we start understanding ourself as swabhava, because in psychology, those of you who teach psychology or organizational behavior or leadership would know that self is perceived as personality or a product in the West. And this is what we learn. This is my personality. All the psychometric assessments put me in a block. They label me as if I'm a final product. They forget that self is swabhava. It's my swabhava. My swabhava comes from Panchmahabhut, Tridosh, Saptadhatu, Mana, Atma, and the input or the nourishment that goes into my each indriya. Also, my swabhava, though my prakruti is permanent, therefore my physical frame, which prakruti I am born in, vata pradhana, pitta pradhana, or kapha pradhana, is determined. But how do I keep it balanced is up to me. How do I evolve at my manas level? How do I evolve at my indriya level? How do I evolve at my atma level? Is unknown to me, which the Western psychology is still trying to discover. In fact, quantum physics, not the psychology, but the quantum physics has been able to discover this. I read it very beautiful. What is it? Ramakrishna Rao, or I'm forgetting the name of the author who said this. That in the West, the psychology had the envy of physics, because physics was seen as science, while psychology was, even today, psychology is not seen as science in the West. While in India, our Indian psychology had the envy of Western psychology. So we have not even worked. It's only last few years, I would say a decade or so, that we are collectively coming together to create this sense of Bhartiya psychology, Indic psychology, which is disguised in philosophy, which is disguised in Natya Shastra, which is disguised in poetry, which is disguised in Ayurveda or medical science, which is disguised in yoga. And we are trying to bring out the wisdom from everywhere and create a whole curriculum, create a holistic understanding. So then you realize that, oh, if we look at Avkash, as one of the Mahabhut of which we are made up of, Akash is still expanding. We are still, it's mysterious, is omnipresent. It is omnipotent. It has all the knowledge. And if I am made up of Akash, so am I also evolving and expanding. I'm not a final product. One of my mentors in life, Dr. S.K. Parukh, who was a yoga acharya and expert on Patanjali Yoga Sutra, he used to say, are you a product or a process? And most of us are confused, right? Because when you make your profile, when you make your CV, you become a product. And what we do, we always try to project what we are not. But the moment you go into self as a swabhava, it's nothing about what we are projecting to the outer world, but it's about self-knowledge. So I become a better person. I become a better teacher. I become a better faculty. I become a better human being. That being human comes central. And that being human is still evolving and expanding. At Rashtram, we teach a full course on this, Sanskar Abhyasa and Introduction to Swabhava and Swadharma. And why is it important? Even if we look at the Western literature, if you look at the books coming out of Gallup and other consulting firms, they talk a lot of talent. They talk a lot of signature strength. And I'm trying to create this correlation because the signature strength survey that Gallup has come up with, if we look at our own swabhava or the strength that we have because of the Panch Mahabhut, there's a lot of synergy. And well-being connection is this, that the more I use my talent, the more I use my signature strength in my everyday work, the more well-being I experience. Many of us who are either not even aware of our signature strength or swabhava, or therefore not even using it in our everyday, What is happening? We have a role or a job which is disconnected with our swabhava. And therefore, it's not creating that inner sukha. Prasannata is not coming. And when that is not coming, I'm not experiencing well-being. In this, I connect with what Maslow talks about, the transition from self-actualization to self-transition. We don't even read self-actualization, forget about self-transcendence. But the moment we understand ourselves as microcosm coming from macrocosm, and our swabhava, which is giving us the signature strength and creating us a talent, all of us are as unique as our fingerprint. None of us are same. Even if in this room, if we are 10 people who are Vata Pradhan or Pitta Pradhan or Kapha Pradhan, all of them are different. And that is the beauty of Bhartiya psychology, explaining us what is well-being at the deepest sense. Next, Shrihari. Okay. So before I go to this, any questions? Sorry.
Namaste, the chat box is open. You can post your questions in the chat box.
I realize that understanding self from Bhartiya perspective really creates well-being at a very deepest level. And all of us as faculty, right? Because we are faculty. The moment we create our own well-being, it is so easy to help all our learners create their well-being. And that's how we'll actually come out of this pandemic time. And I would say we would create our new normal, not the new normal dictated by the outside world, but our inner new normal. If there are no question, okay, is there any method of chakra cleansing? Yes, Ranjana, there are various methods, but unfortunately, we don't have that time to get into chakra cleansing. I would just say don't go for shortcuts. There could be a lot of classes luring you with, we'll do your Kundalini Jagruti and cleanse your chakra, because that can actually create a lot of imbalance inside and problems. So put that intention in the universe that I need a right guru to guide me. And therefore, you know, I should be able to clean my chakras. Reiki helps, pranic helps. But in this also, I realize there is too much mushroom growth of marketing. So stay away from, you know, and the more purer your desire to get, because ultimately it's our vibration which will attract that right course or the guru to us, right? So focus on your purer intention, leave it to the universe. Thanks so much, Pankaj. Thanks for your kind comments. So chakra cleansing, yes, of course it's possible. Begin with at least good breathing exercises and pranayama. That would help. Also, Sri Hari Vitthal can take a session on 3SRB. 3-step rhythmic breathing. All of you can Google out on YouTube. There is music available. Sri Hari, you can later on type the link for everyone in the chat box.
Sure,
right?
will do.
There is a rhythmic breathing, and there is also a refining exercises which would help us refine our blocks. And there are various teachers of this. They don't even charge any fees. It's supposed to be given free. If there are no questions, which means we are very clear or very confused. Where are we? So Sri Hari, we can go to the next slide then. Absorbing. Thank you, Sheetal. Okay, so very quickly, Sri Hari, you can just few seconds on each slide because I don't need to elaborate or explain. This is for you to understand why I need to understand my swabhava from a deeper perspective, which will create my well-being. Next. See, ultimately, unfortunately, we as faculty, this is how we have learned as students. Where is the focus? Generally, the focus is on your weakness. The subject in which you are weak, they ask you to focus more. And unfortunately, nobody supports us to focus on what is our strength. The moment we focus on our weakness, we may come to an acceptable level of that weakness, but that never becomes our strength. However, because we have not focused on the strength starts becoming mediocre. And therefore, the moment we start focusing on our strength, accept our weakness, bring it to a certain level so that we don't make mistakes, great mistakes in life, but focus also on strength. Next, Shri Hari. So, okay, I'll just very briefly take you through some slides from my Introduction to Swabhav Swadharma program to just give you a feeling that Akash or ether, what is the talent that Akash or ether in us gives us? It gives us all these strengths. And the moment we develop more Akash Vritti in us, the moment you meditate more on the Akash, these are the things which we can develop or cultivate within us. Next, Shri Hari. Now, do you realize how Vayu or air as a Panch Mahabhut, one of the Panch Mahabhut, holds the key to our well-being? Because it's the life force, it's the enthusiasm, it's the energy. It creates movement. And Vayu works on Pranamaya Kosha. Vayu connects in our prana with the Mahaprana of the cosmic force. Next, Shri Hari. This is the Agni. And in Sanskrit, Agni is called Urdhvagami. If we take a candle and we bend it, the candle bends, but the flame still goes upward, right? That's why it's called Urdhvagami. It always goes up. It's the Agni in us which gives us the aspiration. Unfortunately, we limit our aspiration to materialistic growth, right? Or getting more marks, getting more, achieving more targets, capturing more territory. It's all the Stone Age language which still continues. But if we use that same Agni for our tapas, for real knowledge and wisdom, not just the next promotion, but the real wisdom, oh, this Agni can transform us. Next, Shri Hari. Jalatattva, since we are all made up of more than 70% of Jalatattva, right? This Jalatattva actually has memories. This Jalatattva is what allows us to bind together. It makes us emotional. It makes us creative. It also finds the path of least resistance for us. So anytime we get into a conflict with someone, we can actually take a step back, take a pause and say, oh, do I need to become fire and, go all out with my energy? Or can I withdraw and then find my own path without any conflict, without resistance? Next, Shri Hari. And then last is the Prithvi Tattva. Of course, what happens is because we are Parthiv, right? We as human beings are born on this Prithvi Loka. And therefore, we are also called Parthiv because of the lot of Prithvi Tattva in us. There are Loka in which there is invisible bodies, which is the Varuna Loka, where people are experiencing each other only through the energy. They don't have a physical, visible body. But we on this Prithvi Tattva, we all have physical body. And therefore, it's the Prithvi Tattva, the gravitation of the Prithvi Tattva, which holds us the most. However, we also require that although these are only talent and positives that I have kept here, we also realize that all the territories, all the boundaries that we draw is also possible on the Prithvi Tattva. Anyone who has ever been to the Atari border, I will not call it Vaga. Vaga is on the other side. on our side is called Atari border. Birds in the evening are able to go across without any boundary. They don't know which tree is in which country and where can I have my nest and where do I lay my eggs. Unfortunately, we being on Prithvi Loka, we have created boundaries. So yes, have the positivity of the Prithvi Tattva, use the talent, be grounded, hold everything. Prithvi also has, we never say Pita Prithvi, right? We say Mata Prithvi. So Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the patience, the holding everyone together as a family comes from Prithvi Tattva. Dhairya comes from Prithvi Tattva. However, Prithvi Tattva also gives us certain limitations. Therefore, we need to levitate against the gravitation. And you realize that this is what yoga helps us do, right? Yoga elevates us. So we just don't remain grounded. We are grounded, but we are also experiencing all the way to Akash Tattva. Next, Sri Hari. So this is in totality. Of course, there is a lot of work that goes before you come to this slide in the program. So it's a very step-by-step process to understand where each Mahabhuta is creating our Swabhava and giving us our talent. Next. Yes. So with this, we come to the end of one-way communication, though I'm sure we have created some interaction. But now next 15 minutes or whatever time is all yours. Dhanyavad, Bhumika. And I hope I've been able to connect that interconnectedness from well-being from Indic perspective and how it expands to the macrocosm, how it comes to our own Panchmahabhuta, Tridosha, Saptadhatu, Prasanna, Atma, Indriya, Mana. We have to be very vigilant, mindful, and therefore today you realize mindfulness practices are becoming so popular. But it's nothing else but dhyan, dharana and dhyan from Patanjali Yoga Sutras, right? And breath is most important.
Malaji, we have a question in the chat box.
Yeah, Asima, I'm just reading that. Yeah, thank you.
May I relay it to you?
No, I'm able to read, Sri Hari. Thanks. Okay. The steps of knowing the self. Knowing the self, I would say join such courses, right? This 1.5 hour, 90 minutes, I can only give you a trailer. So what I've tried to give you is 1 spoon of dal and 1 spoon of sabji and just 1 small puri. If you want the full pakwan thali, you need to go through longer sessions. But the easiest way I would say is, because our Patanjali Yoga Sutras very clearly say, our Hridaya Chitta Samvita and our Guru is also within us. So take enough pauses, take enough silent moments, withdraw from the outside world in Pratyahara. So no sense nourishment. Just close your eyes, focus on your nose tip. Watch every breath which is coming in and every breath which is going out. And what will happen? A lot of thoughts would come, right? We all have experience. Whoever has tried meditation, we know it's very difficult to meditate because the mind, the monkey mind, right? That's why my company's name is Tame the Monkey was. But we need to tame that monkey mind, bring it back. And therefore the moment you catch yourself talking to the thoughts, bring it back to your nose tip. Watch every breath which is coming in. Watch every breath which is leaving. Even if you're able to do every day for 2 to 3 minutes at every interval of 2-3 hours, you'll be able to realize yourself that, okay, this is now I'm in anger. Now I'm irritated. Now I'm becoming lazy. Now I'm getting into a tamas mode or a rajas mode, right? All these are self-observation. But of course, a lot of courses are available everywhere, including Rashtram, where we help you understand, discover self in detail. Dhanyavad, Asima. I hope it answers you somewhere.
We have a question from Ajay ji.
Yes.
Apart from mind and body, what about false ego and intelligence?
Wonderful. And Ajay ji, I love your, prefix false, because there is a false ego and intellect, and there is a right ego and intellect, right? Yeah, so I'm so happy that you have already clarified half my answer. Now, this is where when you want to understand from Indic perspective, well-being or even manas and body, you begin with the beginning. So when you want to begin from the beginning, the Prakriti and Purush combination, right, from which the whole cosmos has come. So Mahat is the first one, which is Buddhi. And from Buddhi comes the Ahankara. Now, why do we need to distinguish if everything is coming from Prakriti or Mula Prakriti, or everything is coming from Isha or the highest cosmic energy? Then why is there this, right and wrong and true and false? That is because of Avarana. We all have, as children, played games where you pretend to be someone else, when you know you are not that, but you are playing a game. And we all love playing games. All children, you don't have to teach them how to play games, right? They love making up games on their own. And now today in the era of gaming, lot of technology is available where they keep on playing games and they go to the next level and the next level. So what has happened by the time we become who we are as a human being? Why do I feel I am Mala? Because I have separated from the Mula Prakriti into Mahat, which is the Buddhi, the creative Buddhi or Brahma. From there, the Ahankara. So it's a play of the cosmos, right? That I want to play certain game. That's why we call our life as Leela. Right? It's a Leela hai. Krishna ki Leela hai. But hum jo karte hain, wo Maya kyun ban jati hai? There has to be this is where the Indic thought is very beautiful. Leela is the awareness that I'm playing a game. Leela is the awareness that I have an Ahankara, that I am Mala, I am a faculty, I am a professor, etc., etc. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, whatever. However, the moment from Leela, I forget the consciousness, I get entangled into the role. It becomes Maya. Then it starts becoming myopic. Then my consciousness gets contracted. Then I'm cut off from the higher consciousness or my interconnectedness from everyone. Therefore, I become selfish. The moment I become selfish, I look at mine and yours. Right? In fact, the whole Mahabharata, they say, came from Dhritarashtra's one mindset. Mamakaha Pandavaha. Mere putra Pandav ke putra. The moment you distinguish, the Ahankar becomes wrong, because then I'm more selfishly looking after me and my children, not my brother's sons. And therefore, my buddhi or intellect and intelligence are different. Intellect is what we call IQ. Unfortunately, in all our academics, we focus on intellect, development of intellect, and not intelligence. Intelligence is what is connected with the cosmic intelligence. And therefore, it allows us to understand everything holistically. So if I understand this cosmology, which is called Padartha Vigyan and Ayurveda, which is the first chapter, I understand psychology, philosophy, biology, medical, everything, right? That's the true intelligence. So the moment I start thinking, let's say if you criticize, okay, thank God everyone is appreciating this session and all of you enjoyed and find value. Suppose if there was no alignment, and it can happen. If somebody gives me a negative anyway, feedback is feedback, there is no negative, positive. But if somebody questions me, somebody is not aligned, or somebody wants a different understanding or is coming from a different understanding, if I take it from my ego point, what will I do? I will become defensive, because I'll start attacking that person, that you are not understanding. That becomes wrong intellect. Right intelligence is even understanding the question from where the other person is coming, If I don't have knowledge at the moment to answer, best is to say, my apologies. At the moment, I'm not equipped. But then a good faculty is one who equips herself or himself to be able to answer that question in future. Does that help, Ajay ji? Thank you.
Malaji, we have a question from
Suman ji has raised hand.
Yes. Before that, there is a question in the chat box from Dr. Swati Sumanji. She's asking your guidance with respect to Dinacharya. Few steps of Dinacharya. Shriyari,
you should take a session. All our learners at Rashtram learned this as the first step. They have a Dinacharya tracker. They follow themselves. Dinacharya is connected. When do you wake up? And Dinacharya in Ayurveda says we need to wake up early enough to welcome the sun. So before sunrise, we should be awake. First thing, we should clean our bowel movement, clean our mouth. And therefore a tongue cleaner is very important, because tongue is where our Vani is. Tongue is where we taste the food. So tongue needs to be cleaned, teeth, of course, gums, everything needs to be cleaned, eyes, nose, ears need to be cleaned. Oil needs to be applied because oil balances Vata. Some exercise, depending on the season, how much exercise you do, it's outside or inside. Then taking a bath every day, which is, again, I would say, if you are in engineering college, this is something that you must add in your students' life. Because unfortunately, our education is totally cut off from Dinacharya. They sleep when we are supposed to wake up, right? So getting it right back, because our energy is connected, our Agni is connected with the sun outside. So having right food, therefore in our Indian way, we never had breakfast. We never had breakfast like a king, but we had a brunch. So around 10:30, 11 is when you have your lunch, proper lunch, heavy lunch, the best meal of your time of the day. Then you get into your routine, your work. By evening, you start winding up, because they say that our heart is also a brain. And our heart is like a kamal, the lotus flower. And we all know that lotus flower blooms with sunrise and closes with sunset. So our heart also closes with sunset. And imagine the modern lifestyle. Lot of people do their gym exercise post work, which is after the heart has closed. You have your dinner after the heart has closed, or you go for your second shift in job in a BPO or a factory manufacturing unit. When is the right time to sleep? Because that's the time the pitta, the fire in the body, actually turns the ingested food into nourishment. And it requires that time for metabolism. So Dinacharya, if you Google out also, you'll get a lot of stuff. There is a book by Dr. Bhaswati Bhattacharya called Everyday Ayurveda. It's a beautiful book. There is a book by Dr. Ārogya Jain, which is called The Root Cause. Both these books are excellent basic books in Ayurveda, which I would recommend to everyone. Later on, Sri Hari and Namrata are, I think, collating all the resources also. I'll also share one of my published article in a book on health psychology, revisiting Ayurveda for health psychology. So I will share that article. Dr. Swati, does that answer you? Thank you. Yeah, Sumanji.
मैम, जो अभी आपने दिनचर्या बताया कि जिनकी दिनचर्या जॉब के कारण डिस्टर्ब हो जाती है, तो ऐसा कोई उपाय है जो दिनचर्या मैनेज की जा सके आयुर्वेद में?
अनफॉर्चुनेटली मैं कहूंगी दिनचर्या मैनेज मत कीजिए, जॉब मैनेज कीजिए. हमने है ना,
नाइट वाला जॉब कौन करेगा? करना तो हम ही सोसाइटी में, हम ही लोग
क्यों करेंगे? आप ये मुझे बताइए, जो विकसित देश हैं वो नहीं करते हैं? वो सारा हमें थर्ड वर्ल्ड कंट्री को दे देते हैं रात वाला जॉब, वो तो आराम से सो जाते हैं. तो ये कॉन्फिडेंस, ये आत्मनिर्भर भारत तभी बनेगा जब हम ऐसे काम को मना करेंगे जो अप्राकृतिक है। हम क्यों अप्राकृतिक काम करेंगे? ये एक आत्मविश्वास मैं तो चाहती हूँ हम सब में आए।
यस यस,
है ना?
हाँ बिल्कुल। और
जो
ये जो
अकुदरती है
5
हम नहीं करेंगे, हम अपनी।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल।
मैंने, आप यकीन नहीं करोगे, जब मैं टेम द मंकी चला रही थी मेरी कंसल्टिंग, आपको नेचुरली अलग अलग क्लाइंट मिलते हैं। अब एक बैंक मेरा क्लाइंट था और उनका ये कहना था कि बैलेंस इज बंक। वो एक हैंडआउट भी देते थे कि भैया हम तो, भारत इतनी जीडीपी से ग्रो हो रहा है, भारत को ग्रो करना है तो आपको 16-18 घंटे काम करना पड़ेगा, ओवर टाइम करते रहना पड़ेगा, रात देर तक छुट्टियां नहीं मिलेगी वगैरह, बैलेंस इज बंक। मैंने वो आर्टिकल देना मना कर दिया तो उन्होंने मुझे कंसल्टिंग से निकाल दिया। मैंने कहा कोई बात नहीं है, पर मैं गलत चीज नहीं पढ़ा सकती, है ना? तो ये एक, और मुझे और दूसरा काम मिल गया, कम पैसे मिलेंगे थोड़े वक्त के लिए, पर ये एक विश्वास होना चाहिए कि मैं हित से अहित में शिफ्ट नहीं होंगी। इसीलिए हित अहित समझना बहुत जरूरी है,
बहुत जरूरी है। और ये जो 5 महाभूत हैं जो हमारे टैलेंट को कंट्रोल करते हैं, उन्हीं से हमारी बॉडी भी बनती है। तो क्या जब सीजन वाइज बर्थ होता है तो क्या ऐसा कुछ होता है कि 5 महाभूत का असर हमारे ऊपर कम और ज्यादा भी होता है?
बिल्कुल होता है। वो दिन में भी होता है, दिन में भी वायु का समय, अग्नि का समय और पृथ्वी तत्व का समय होता है, और रात में भी होता है। ये पूरी आप जब दिनचर्या अच्छे से पढ़ोगे तो आपको समझ में आएगा कि ये अग्नि का समय है, इसलिए अभी खाना खाना चाहिए।
जी जी,
ये पृथ्वी
12
तत्व
बजे
का
से
समय
पहले
है तो
वाला
अभी
टाइम।
आराम करना चाहिए।
तो सीजन वाइज भी ये तत्वों का बैलेंस चेंज होता होगा।
अभी देखिए, अभी वैसे तो विंटर होना चाहिए, पर मॉनसून आ गया है क्लाइमेट चेंज की वजह से, तो ह्यूमिडिटी बढ़ गई है। अब जब ह्यूमिडिटी बढ़ गई है तो अग्नि मंद हो गया है। आप वैसे अगर पढ़ोगे दिनचर्या तो विंटर में ड्राई फ्रूट्स खूब खाने चाहिए, हैवी खाना चाहिए, लड्डू खाने चाहिए। अभी अगर मैं ड्राई फ्रूट वाले लड्डे खाऊंगी तो बीमार पड़ जाऊंगी, क्योंकि इस वक्त अग्नि मंद है। तो ये मुझे सोचना चाहिए कि अभी अगर क्लाइमेट अलग हो रही है तो मुझे अदरक वाली चाय पीनी चाहिए, अदरक और काली मिर्च वाला काढ़ा पीना चाहिए, मुझे
अग्नि को इम्प्रूव
खाने।
अग्नि मंद है तो हमें अग्नि को बैलेंस करने वाले मटेरियल्स खाने चाहिए।
बिल्कुल।
और बैलेंस हमें बना के रखना
जी, और ये आलोक जी ने और भास्वती जी दोनों ने बहुत अच्छे से समझाया है।
थैंक यू मैम।
Thank you. Are there any further questions from the participants? Malaji, looks like we don't have any further questions.
So we stop here.
Yes. Thank you so much, Malaji, for joining us and sharing a lot of wisdom from IKS on well-being, Hita Ayu. We have so much to churn on, and the churning has evidently started, I would say. So thank you. Dhanyawad.
Dhanyawad. Punna milama.
Punna milama.